So as the mayor alluded to, just wanted to really expand the conversation around the Mayor's Village Initiative, to give you all really an understanding of what it's about. I will first say that it originally came from the National League of Cities, where Mayor Michael Nutter and Mayor Mitch Landrieu really saw the challenge of inner city communities and our young black men. So they came up with an initiative called Cities United, which the mayor signed on to put together a plan of action to reduce violent related deaths, in our community. And that was really the genesis of this program. I would say that Cities United, I have the website on another slide, has its own nonprofit at this time, so it'll be a great tool for you all to look to, where this is whereby 80 municipalities across the country share best practices on how to reduce violence, but more especially create opportunity for our young black men. So the Mayor's Village Initiative is our local effort, and here's the definition: focusing on the plight of African American boys and young men in the north end of our city. Once again, the goal is to reduce violent related deaths and to improve outcomes of boys and young men. So with the term village, it really includes everyone. This should be a concern about from all of our city, not just churches and police and those in the north end of the city. It is truly a village. So that's why it really consists of government agencies, the business community, concerned citizens, faith community, nonprofit, philanthropy, and schools. So the mayor's office is really just an umbrella. A lot of these programs already exist, but it serves as an umbrella and as a space to really bring everyone together. So as I alluded to, the target communities is primarily 3 neighborhoods in the north end of the city: Coleman Park, the historic Northwest, and Pleasant City. And the way we came up with our target population is we looked at a heat map from the police department to identify where a lot of our level 1 offenses, our more serious offenses, occurred in the city, and it was in this community. Once again, that's the website for Cities United. So a lot of this I talked about the last time with the Urban League here. We decided to hone in on the workforce development portion of this work initially. So the only thing I will add, and I'm going to let William, after I go through my presentation, he'll talk more in depth about Square One. But the only new thing I would add is that we meet monthly. Every third Friday, we bring together a lot of the players, not only in the city, but in the county, as it relates to workforce development, unions, the Florida Training Services, which runs the technical schools in the county, and also Urban League and Career Source, among others. We have, in the past, tried a couple of job fairs specifically for this community, and when I say specifically, I'm talking about 18 to 24-year-old young African-American males that may not have a GED or may have a mark on their record, or maybe just on the fence, really don't know what they want to do. We have attempted a couple of job fairs specifically to that population. And we also work with other entities. Career Source has a young adult program in which they also work with Opportunity Youth. That's the term that is hot today, Opportunity Youth. But so we try to, when they have different initiatives or internships taking place, we try to make sure that we educate our communities about this. And Virginia Baker asked if I could be on the county workforce development program, which really focuses, on the whole surtax or 1 penny sales tax. So they have really stressed with Career Source the need to have a lot of expos, not only in the city but across across the county. And one thing I'm really stressing to that entity is that we have to get deeper in these communities. We just can't have them at Career Source or Palm Beach State. We need to go to the Salvation Armies, to the Payne Chapels, Tabernacle. We need to go into these neighborhoods where these young men reside. Another piece that we have a lot of activity in is the violence prevention intervention component. So I'll just go through these briefly. We have community dialogues quarterly with the young men in the neighborhood and law enforcement. We believe it's very important to build this relationship and to have frank conversation amongst them. And these conversations can get a little interesting sometimes, but we encourage it because we want it to be in a safe space. So they are 6 week dialogues. We use a curriculum from Everyday Democracy, which basically centers around how to improve relationships between law enforcement and community. So at the end of these dialogues, the goal is for them to come up with a group project that they will do with one another. One is actually scheduled this Saturday. From our last dialogue, they're going bowling. So the police and the young men from the community, and they're bringing friends, and they're going to be at Revolution Saturday. So, once again, it's all about building relationships, and if something does take place in the community, the hope is that they will have a trusted police officer or community member that they can reach out to. But the work is really on both sides. So I would say to date, we've probably had about 8 dialogues, and I know we've probably interacted with about 100 young men from the community and probably about 30 police officers. So a couple others. Neighborhood Accountability Board is for first-time misdemeanors. It's across the, this goes for any youth across the city. Of course, a lot of my work targets young black males, but what takes place is if they are arrested, well, not arrested, but if they commit a misdemeanor for the first time, they have an opportunity to go to this local neighborhood accountability board where you have local members of the village that sit this young man or young woman down along with cops and the victim if they want to be there. It's really about restorative justice. It's really about restoring them back into the community. So, we take this time to really see what their needs are, to talk about whatever the offense was, and to offer sanctions that they have to complete. And if they do not complete the sanctions, they will go to the state attorney's office. But, the hope is, what we encourage is to take advantage of this opportunity and do what's right. So they first have to admit guilt. That's the only way that they can be a part of it. And so far, I'm proud to say we have serviced 36 total. 29 young people have completed it, and so far only 2 has reoffended. So that really is in alignment with national data as it relates to neighborhood accountability boards. It's about a 5% recidivism rate. The next one, you all have heard about this before, it's through the police, so it focuses on first-time felony offenders, and they do target the north end of the city. I know a lot of the commissioners have been, and the mayor have been on one of our Saturday morning outings, and this is an opportunity where we reach out to these are primarily young men, black males, and just really try to, once again, assess what their needs are, and if they need a GED or a job or counseling, try to connect them, to the resources that are available. Every third Thursday of the month, we have our Peace in the Street walks. We walk in each of those neighborhoods that I mentioned earlier. This really originated from, the rash of violence we had a couple of summers back. So it's really an opportunity for community members and law enforcement to really engage the community. Once again, trying to see, what's taking place in the community, what suggestions do they have, how can we assist them? And once again, it's really about building trust. This work will not, these communities will not transform over time, but in quick time, but I think over the long term, my hope is with really going door to door, sharing resources and promoting nonviolence, that we will see a change in these neighborhoods. Last but not least, under this point, there's the Coleman Park moving forward plan. One piece that is very beneficial with Cities United is that they provide technical assistance. So a consultant crafted a plan that targeted mostly or totally on Coleman Park, because that's where a lot of that violence was in 2015. We're taking a look at that now and seeing what recommendations we would like to implement. As I mentioned to you before, the community activities, the Teens Unite Summer Block Party Series is where we gathered the young people together over the summer for about 8 consecutive Saturdays to keep them out of trouble, but also to create an environment where they can have a good time. So as it relates to public policy, these are a couple of things that I believe will really speak to the community that the Village Initiative focuses on. The whole idea of banning the box, the Neighborhood Accountability Board. We're appreciative of the mayor's leadership on that when she was first elected, and the marijuana civil citation, because although there are targeted instances of violence in these neighborhoods, of course, a lot of what we deal with these young men are drug offenses, and the hope is if we can get them early on, they will not get to the deeper issues, and we all know that once you get a felony, it's pretty challenging. It's pretty challenging out here. So as far as future programs, one is the hospital-based violence intervention program. It's really just another touch point. So these are for individuals. Everybody's not killed. Everyone's not a homicide victim. Some are injured. So this is really, the theme they use in this field is called, the golden moment or teachable moment. When somebody, is in the hospital and has been shot, they feel like this is really an opportunity where, case management can come in and say, look, you survived, but it may not be this way again. So how can we help you get on the right track so you don't end up here? There's great data that supports this type of program. For those that typically go through this program with the case management services, I want to say it's about a 5 to 7% rate of them, being re-injured and ending up back in the hospital, compared to those that are not engaged in this program, where it's more like 45, 50% of the time they will end up in this predicament again, or more especially dead. So we talked with some leadership from St. Mary's, Eric Kelly from the Quantum Foundation, to start this conversation, and it's something that they seemed amenable to, but we got to continue to work out the details. The Mayor's Village Initiative crime response will really be in instances of violence in that area of the city. Myself, along with other clergy and other concerned community members, will come out and really provide care for those residents that are there. A lot of times what the police says is that they're focusing on trying to secure the crime scene, and people want to see the body, want to know what's going on. So the hope is that we can provide some assistance with them to really try to calm things, just promote cooler heads, and to assist the police and the community. The Racial Equity Institute, I believe this is a very beneficial program that really, looks at the structural inequities and structural racism as it relates to policy, public policy. I'm sure many of you all have already participated in it, but hopefully this is something that we can get some of our leadership in, maybe some community members, but that's something we'd like to implement in the future. The reentry simulation is a program where we once again take city leaders, such as yourselves possibly, or cops, business leaders, and really take them through the process of what it feels like for a reentry individual. You get monopoly money, there's tables set up where you got a parole officer, where, you have employment, and it just really articulates or shows people the challenges that the reentry community has, and the hope is, that this will, inspire us to be more friendly to those, that have those type of issues. And last but not least, I know I talked about the summer jobs program for teens last time I was here. In some municipalities, what they do specifically is have a jobs program targeted, for the young men in those specific neighborhoods. So that's just something else on the wish list. Some current gaps. We really need to do better with the business community involvement. That's something I'd like to see improved. Community involvement, we interact a lot with the community, but we really don't have like quarterly meetings, like, this is what we're trying to do, what are your thoughts? So that's something we could do better. And I see John here. I have spoken with Alicia Nguyen with the CRA, and it may be something where we can work hand in hand with their community meetings. We'd just like to get, the education or educational institutions, the school district, and others more involved. We would like to create or craft a marketing plan, and that will look different, to nonprofits compared to the business community. But really, just stressing the importance of this issue and that everyone can be a part. Philanthropic support. So, as I alluded to earlier, we do have Quantum at the table, but the hope is that we can start looking at some of the other funders, not only locally, but potentially nationally, to help us with this work. And last but not least, want to make a more concerted effort with the reentry community. I know Commissioner Moffitt's on that task force with the county, and I am myself. So the hope is to see how we can really grab, especially those that we know are coming back to the north end of the city, and really help them as they reenter community. So the next steps, I think we're not perfect, but I feel like we have a decent handle on workforce development and on intervention and prevention. So what we want to start doing, because what Cities United challenged us with at the last convening, is to really start coming up with strategic plans of action. So after discussing with the mayor, we're really going to start taking a look at some of these countywide initiatives, that I've listed here. And the goal will be how we can layer some of their strategic goals and some of their work onto what we're already doing in this targeted area of the city. So it's really like a pilot project. So I think that's really going to be the sell to a lot of these organizations that you already have these strategic initiatives. How can we come together to really see how we're, once again, making an impact in a targeted area? So that is the next steps. We will probably try to have an introductory meeting in November, and then we will continue that work, which will lead to, as I alluded to, developing the action plan. Cities United provided us all with a roadmap to safe, healthy, and hopeful communities. A couple of cities have been successful at this, really putting together a strategic and very holistic plan. So they were able to capture this in a document, and this will be our guiding tool moving forward. So I know, the mayor won't be here forever, I won't be here forever, but the hope is we'll have a plan to say, hey, this is how we can benefit this particular area that historically has been challenging in our city. And the goal is, as I conclude, is that, the city doesn't have to do all the work. It's a lot of these initiatives already going on. So we want to encourage them to continue to do their work. But once again, it's really about coming together and seeing how we can strategically focus on this concentrated community and see if we can gain any traction.